around this time. You're safe from talk of microphones and audio editing. No, this is going to be a killer session. Sorry, I've got an edio on my an echo on my end. I've just solved that. This is a session that I've been really looking forward to. So, for those who don't know, the gentleman next to me is this is the guy I go to when I can't figure out how to make storyline do the thing that I want it to do. So this is a session that I'm going to learn a lot from this. I know you are too. So I'm going to stop blabbering away. I'm going to get out of the way and hand over the screen now. Take it away. So
Yeah, thank you. So my name is Andrzej Jabłoński, and I promise this is the most challenging thing you will see and hear today, as I'm planning to show you how to build some cool interactions, cool things in storyline with simple steps. So let me start by showing you one of my challenges that I've built. It's about a cute vampire to raise the awareness why people should donate blood. So I hope you will also hear the sound, but let's see.
Who dares to disturb my slumber? Oh, it's you. Welcome in my sanctuary. Don't worry, I don't bite. Well, not anymore. I love strawberry juice. Blood is too precious to drink. My veins are full of strawberry juice so I can donate, but you can. Your donation can help save up to 3 lives.
Yeah, so basically that was it. Let me just stop so you will
Don't
hear
worry.
the audio. So let me start by saying what's the cause why I created this demo. Actually, it's a one, as I mentioned, it was created for the e-learning heroes challenges. It's the community built around Articulate, and there is a, let's say, a forum where every week the new topic is posted, and then you can create your short demo where you know tackling the issue from the specific week. It's really great way to start your adventure with e-learning because you can build your portfolio and also test your skills. Some topics are more focused on the technical aspects of the software, for example, how to use a slider or the dial, but some are more, let's say, open, like this one, where the topic was how to tell people that they should donate blood. So in this way, as I said, the topic was a bit more open, so people could came up with really different ideas. And today I would like to walk you through the whole process from the start until the end. So at the beginning, when I was thinking about blood donation campaigns and in general some campaigns about health and safety, the first thing that pops into my mind is that they are quite boring, let's say. You can also say that they are a bit similar because there is always like a big picture of someone and a bold title saying you should do this or you should do that. So it's always repeating the same scheme. So in this way, in this task, I wanted just to create something else. And when I started thinking what could I do, I've decided to play a bit with the storytelling and use the power of storytelling to convey the message why donating blood is really important. And then I was thinking what character or what story could be connected with blood. So I thought about a vampire because it's maybe not the best example of blood donation, but in this story you could see a vampire who dropped the blood and start drinking strawberry juice. So is this a bit twist in the story to make it more interesting and show that even a vampire can resign from drinking blood and switch to something more healthy, so people also could make this, let's say, sacrifice and then go donate blood. So that's the initial story. That was my idea. And when I had this idea in my mind, I've decided to use the layout of a comic to make it more playful. And let me start by showing you how I built this this layout in the Photoshop. So I hope you can see all the options here. So the first thing I did was to create a comic grid. It's really simple. I can show you right now how I did it. All you need to do is to create just a simple shape, and if you press the control button and select any of the corner, then you can just manipulate and make it more like a comic grid. Yeah, so it's fairly easy to do your shape, or you can just download an image from the Google or from any other website, place it here, add your shape, and try to mimic the layout below. The reason why I use the shapes in Photoshop is that I could leverage the clipping mask feature. As you can see, I have all the frames here in a separate folder. Let's open the first one. So this is the actual shape from the Photoshop, and these two layers above with the little arrow are put, let's say, inside of it. Let me just remove this so we will see the whole image. I know it's a bit opposite than in Illustrator, because in Illustrator the clipping mask is above the object, but in the Photoshop it's below. So if you just press the Alt button and place it between two layers, you will see the small icon with arrow. When it's clicked, then the image goes inside the shape, and the adjusting layer to change the color a bit. I mentioned that it's quite useful thing to do, because when the image is inside the shape, then you can actually move it around and see what's the best position inside the frame. Here you can see only one image, but in this case we have a background and a character, so it's quite nice to move things around and see what would be the best setup in specific frame. And what's interesting, if you want to create something really nice, you don't need tons of images to create this kind of comic, because I can show you that to create this one I've just used 3 images. This one is the first one with the, let's say, vampire character, and there is also, let me just open it, one more with the old house, and the last one is that I used for the background. So with only 3 images you are able to create something really spectacular, I would say. You don't need a lot of assets. And when it comes to the images, as you could see from the watermark, I've downloaded them from the freepik.com. It's a really broad library of images, and it's fairly inexpensive, so if you want to check it out, I highly recommend it. Okay, let me close these images. Yeah, so as I mentioned, I've created this layout, comic layout, in the Photoshop, then put all the images inside specific frame so I could manipulate them. And one tip is to use intelligent objects, and because you can, if you double click the object, then you can edit it directly in the Illustrator, so you don't need to export it from the Illustrator and put into Photoshop if you make any changes. So then it's just easier. For example, let me, I don't know, delete his nose. I know it's cruel, but let's see. if it's get updated. Yeah, and now you see that there is no nose in this character. I'm sorry, Vampire, but yeah. And the setup of the second screen was exactly the same, the black grid and the folder with the images for the comic. So I hope that's clear for you. If you have any questions, let me know and I will move to the next part, which is how I built it in Storyline Articulate. Okay, so you should be able to see it now. Let me just make the timeline a bit bigger so you can see all the elements that I've put on the timeline. And starting from the bottom, I've used the gray rectangle. I will talk about it in a minute. Sorry, but let me start with the audio. As you could hear, the background audio was looped. I know that there are some tricks to use JavaScript to have one background audio looped throughout all the screens, but in this case I've decided to use no hacks, just pure triggers. And the way I did it is quite simple. It's just one trigger that play the audio when the timeline starts on this slide, and then the other one when play the same audio when this audio completes. So it's creating the endless loop of audio in the background. Moving up, I have maybe I will do like this. Yeah, I have this black frames, the black grid exported from the Photoshop, and right now they are in the group, but let me just ungroup it. So you might ask why these are all separate images if I could export like the whole, sorry, not this one, the whole black layout. The answer is quite simple. In order to, not to struggle with the alignment, you will do it only once when doing this layout with black rectangles. Then when you import an actual image, you can just select both of them and make the alignment. So it's far more easier than trying to align this image to this one if it was just one big image, not the separate cells, separate images, sorry. So when I set up this grid in the storyline, the next step was to import all the images and to make them appear. It's a simple animation. It's just half of the second fade in, so it's nothing complicated. And then you just need to play around with the timing between specific images, and it's almost ready. You can also see that I've added some text here. At the beginning I was planning to add some bar here directly in the image and place the text like in the, let's say, real comic, but after some consideration I've decided to use custom shapes from Storyline, as it gives me more control about the size, and if I want to change the amount of the text or the design, it's really easier to do it directly here, to play with the color, with the shape, or with the size. So that's why I went for the shapes directly from the storyline. Also, in terms of accessibility, the text that is a text, not an image, is of course far more better for this matter, for this topic. Okay, so we have the images, we have bubble speeches with text, and the last, maybe not the last, but the important element was to add some sound effects to make it more interactive, maybe not interactive, to make it more, let's say, alive. And there is a website called freesounds.org where you can find a lot of, different sound effects. They are uploaded by people around the world. Some of them you can use for free. And in this case, I've decided to use the sound of knocking to the doors and a hiss sound, as I said, to make it more alive. And the last step to create this piece was to add some VO. Unfortunately, I don't have the skills to do it on my own, so I've decided to use Amazon Poly service. I know it's free for the first 12 months, so you can definitely go and check it. And it's a text to voice generator, so I have decided to use this one and play around with the audio editor a bit. So adding all the pieces inside, this is how I build this screen, this demo. And there is also one more detail to notice. One of the frames, the last one, is disappearing near the end of the timeline. This is because the last frame has additional state called fold, and it changes when the next button, which is a hotspot, appears on the screen. So in this way, when we are at the end of the timeline, the learner or user will see a folded image with the arrow to jump to the next slide. So this is the second slide that I've built, and as you can see, there is nothing new. There is no big difference between this one and the previous one. The only thing that is different here is the order of speech bubbles, as they are above all the elements. That's because some of them are just above the frames, so they need to be at the top of the timeline, so they are not stuck, behind some frame, like in this case. So I had to put them at the top. And again, the last frame, the last image, has a state called fold. Let me make it a bit bigger. Yeah. So here I've just add a link to the website where you can read more about blood donation, and the mechanism is same as in previous slide. When the timeline of this hotspot button starts, this image changes to default state. So as you could see, there is nothing super complicated in this build. It's fairly easy to do. All you need to do is to prepare images in a Photoshop, then import them into the storyline, add some animation, play around with the timeline, and voila, it's ready. One more thing to mention is to talk a bit about player properties. As you could see, let me close it for a second. I have a background, the gray background here, and it's exactly the same color as the background in the player. I think it's a quite nice touch because it makes it more seamless and, let's say, immersive. Because there is no white frame, or there is no difference between the background color and the player background color. So it's a quite nice touch that is fairly easy to do. And the other thing that you can notice is that the SIG bar is red to match the theme of blood and blood donation, and you can also change the accent color here, so it's a quite nice touch. in order to have, you know, more polished project. Yes, so before I will show you another one, I don't know if there are any questions, or I can take them at the end. Oh, I can see one. Let me just read it. Yeah. You know, I would say that good planning was most of the time in this, you know, in this project, because as you can see, the execution is quite simple. It's nothing complicated. So before I started, you know, developing it in the storyline, I had to, you know, think about all the images, how to place the elements in the storyline, how to design them, what's the best approach when building it. So in fact, that's also my advice to people who are e-learning developers, that sometimes it's better to think a bit at the start rather than jumping straight into the software, because you can save a lot of time at the beginning rather than looking the solution in the software when doing things ad hoc. So I hope that answer your question. Okay, so let me open one more example that I prepared for today. This one is focused more on, let's say, the technical aspect or technical element from the storyline. It's using the scroll bar. So let me just open it. Yes, so oh, sorry, the font isn't working properly, but it's not an issue here. So the idea was to mimic the, you know, the slider ability in the mobile, that you can, you know, just touch the screen and, you know, move the images around. So what I've prepared is the recipe for a perfect toast, and let me just start with showing you the example. Yeah, so you can just scroll down and see all the steps to create a perfect toast. What I like about this project that there is no scroll bar, so you can have this impression like it was designed to just scroll. There is some complicated scripting behind, but it's just, the answer is really simple, because the scroll bar is just, you know, outside the working area. So it's, as I said, it's nothing complicated and it's fairly easy to build. You know, I am overusing fairly easy, sorry for that. The only thing you have to do is to create one long image. Maybe I will make it a bit smaller and put all the elements inside. So then you can play around a bit. Oh, they are somewhere else, sorry. Yeah. The struggle here is that it's a bit hard to manipulate them when they are inside of the scroll bar scrolling panel. But the tip here is to group all the elements and then add a group inside. So you have to start with your design before actually putting it inside the scrolling panel. But maybe let me show you the, let's say, developer version of this file, so it's a bit easier to see. Okay, give me a minute. Okay, so here I've just added shapes to show separate screens. So you can see the screen 1, screen 2, screen 3, and screen 4. So it's easy to calculate the size because it's the size of your project, and then you just need to put elements inside, as I said, group it, and then you are ready to go. I think it's quite nice if you put some elements in between two screens, so someone who is using this project, it's impossible, to tell where is the break between screens. And also I believe that the solution with scrolling bar off the screen, it's quite nice because you can still scroll the panel, and there is no issue with different sizes of scrolling bars in mobile, because this is mainly designed for a mobile, as it could be hard to use in a desktop setup. Yeah. Okay, so maybe I will show the last thing that it was like the emergency project. Maybe I'm talking too fast, but maybe I'm a bit nervous, so sorry for that. Okay, so the last project that I'm really proud of is it was a challenge about using the paper cutout effect. So just give me a second, I will open it and you will see it right. No, not this one. Okay, here we go. So let me just show you the project and then I will talk a bit about it. Thanks for the nice comments. And so the challenge here was to use, as I said, the cutout paper effect, and I've decided to follow the tutorial from Adobe to create this depth using different layers of images. And I think it's quite playful design to show some basic information about the planets in the solar system. Also, the small animations are also quite nice touch. Yeah, I would like to show you again the behind the scenes, so you will see my PSD file. Maybe it's not that polished as the previous one, but it may seem super complicated to build something like this, but in fact these are just images stacked in the timeline to create this kind of depth. Each layer, as you can see, is added separately, so when you click all the images, you will have this kind of depth. And the fact that I'm using different the background is split into separate layers, it allows me to place the planets between them, so this depth effect, it's even better in this case. Yeah. So I guess maybe I will not go into much more details in this project. What I like to say is that the challenges are, as I said at the beginning, it's a great way to play around a bit. I know the reality at work is not always that fun, and it's not always possible to play around and have some extra activities. And in this case, if you are a bit bored with what you are doing at work, then you can let your creativity outside and just as I said, play around with the design, with the images, and the community is really supportive. You know, you will see a lot of feedback from people out there. You can learn a lot from them, and you'll also see a lot of great projects there, which is for me it was really a great opportunity, you know, to work on my projects, to create some kind of portfolio. I was also publishing these challenges on LinkedIn, so I could tell you that some of my clients they saw them, so there was no need for any extra portfolio. They were quite satisfied with the challenges and decided to give me a job. So yeah, that's really nice benefit of doing them. And as I said, you don't need to, you know, create hundreds of screens. It can be one screen, 5 screens, whatever works for you. It's also quite nice because I know that, you know, sometimes it's hard to find this extra time for extra project, but I believe it's totally worth it to take part in those challenges. I've built around 60 of them. Right now I'm on a pause, but who knows, maybe in the future I will join again. Yeah, so sorry for being a bit chaotic, but I hope you find some interesting things for you. If you have any more questions or if you'd like to get the file, I can share them, so you can reach to me via LinkedIn, or we can host it here, I guess. So yeah, that's all from me. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, that was fantastic. Thank you so much. I think that's it's only this last one. I remember seeing this. I remember sitting in a room with a colleague, Phil, in fact, and us sitting there going, "How's he built that? And how can we do something like that in a place where we used to work together?" So it's fun to see it again. It really is. We do have some questions in the chat.
Yep.
I thought this was a particularly good one. Do you have some advice for those just learning Articulate? Where to start?
Yeah, so I would say you just open it and use it. Maybe it's, you know, it sounds trivial, but the best way to learn the software is just to use it. Because to be honest, when I started my first job as an e-learning designer or developer, I had no previous experience in any authoring tool. And on the first day, they just told me, okay, this is Articulate. Here you have some PowerPoint. They work a bit similar. So just open it, play around with the objects inside. And that's how I started. So my advice would be just, you know, open it, play around, see what's inside. There is plenty of resources out there. As I mentioned, the e-learning heroes community, where you can see some really nice examples. You can have some inspiration from others. You can also talk with people. So also the other advice would be, don't be afraid of sharing your design, even if it's not super advanced or super polished, because the true value lies in the feedback of the people who are, you know, seeing this design, and you can really learn a lot from them.
Definitely, I think that's fantastic advice. And actually, I think you kind of already answered this one. So, are these projects hosted behind a firewall, or are they open access? A lot of people who aren't at the conference but would love to look at the creations for inspiration. Well, first and foremost, of course, they can watch the replay of this and have this lovely presentation back with them. But yes, I think you were saying that you have the files.
Yes, I have the files. I can share the story files with you if you want to see behind the scenes. And when it comes to publishing, I use the review, of course, from the storyline, and also I used to upload the files to Amazon Bucket to have, you know, them online for the people. Yes.
So best thing
But
to do then is reach out to you directly and
yeah,
have a chat.
Yeah, I will
Awesome.
gladly share the files. There is no issue with that. Of course, if you don't use it for commercial purposes, then it's fine.
Well, keeping an eye out. If it suddenly appears somewhere, you'll know.
Yeah.
No, brilliant. Loads of people here saying how fantastic the session was, and it really was. Oh, here we go. From Jonathan Rock. What's your favourite storyline trick?
That's a really interesting and tough question, I would say. My favorite trick.
Mine's copying your work. Like getting a file you've created and then just copy and paste that functionality out. I found that works brilliantly.
Okay, I have maybe one trick that I really like is when I'm building a screen with multiple layers, and in order to control all the variables that can be present in specific layer, I create, let's say, one master layer with all the triggers manipulating the variables there. And let's say when I'm opening layer 1, when the timeline starts of this layer, it automatically opens the master layer with all the variables. So in this case, you don't need to copy all the triggers to all the layers. Instead, you have one, and it's clear and it's easier to control in case of any issues with the triggers. So that's the first thing that from the top of my mind, but I bet there's more of them somewhere hidden, in the brain.
Fantastic. And question here from Kara. What was your favorite articulate e-learning hero challenge?
That's also a bit tough to answer. As I said, I did around 60 of them, so it's hard to think, but I think that one of my favorite was the one that you can see right now with the paper cut effect, because I've learned something new in terms of following Adobe tutorial on YouTube, and I think that design is really nice. I love the images, so this is one of my favorite challenges so far.
I would certainly agree. As I said, this is the way always, whenever I think of ELH, this is the project that comes to mind. Just I remember seeing it. I remember seeing it because I was trying to learn storyline at the time, and just thinking, that. Why can't I make that? Awesome. Anyone for any more questions? Okay, if not, you can pester afterwards on LinkedIn.
Yes. Yeah, I'm happy to help, as I received a lot of help from the community, so I want to give back something from me.
Amazing stuff. Well, thank you so much. This has been phenomenal. Love seeing the work, and I think you're exactly right. I think there is a level of fear around storyline as a tool just to jump into it. But I know that's certainly how I've learned is jump in, make a complete mess, and then, as you say, get some feedback from someone who knows what they're doing. Awesome. Well,
That's true.
Thank you everyone as well for joining us for the first half of today. We are now coming up on a biscuit break. So it's time to grab a drink, grab some hobnobs or some digestives, and we are back after the break at 2 p.m. UK time, so just about an hour, and we're back with Kara North talking learning experience design. So not one to miss. Thank you again, and we will speak to you soon.
Thank you.